Hi, I'm from Talisman Wallet. We're one of the leading wallets in the Bittensor ecosystem. We also support more than 900 chains across EVM and Solana. We have a very deep integration with Bittensor on our wallet where users can view all of their TAO and subnet balances all in one unified interface, as well as swap, on-ramp, and stake very simply, all with one click.
I'm Bradley. I founded Bittensor.ai. We run on the Bittensor ecosystem, kind of onboarding, access, all of that stuff. So we're really interested in trying to get people into the ecosystem and understanding kind of what we offer and what Bittensor is going to revolutionize.
All right. Hey, guys. My name is CH. I work at BitGet. I do a lot of branding stuff there, but I discovered Bittensor last year, early last year. I fell down a rabbit hole, and once you understand this ecosystem, it's just like finding Bitcoin at $300, maybe even better, arguably. And we're going to dive into all of that today, and I think it's going to be a very exciting panel for you to check out. And so thanks for being here with us. Cheers.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to start is, we want to keep this high level. We want to let people understand what is Bittensor. And I think the best way to start is let's look at Bitcoin, right? And so, CH, if you could just kind of take that.
Sure. So we're at a blockchain conference, and I'm sure most of us here are familiar with Bitcoin. Essentially, the thing to know about Bitcoin is it's the first decentralized network to align incentives. It comes down to economic incentives. And what does that mean? That means Satoshi, whoever he, she, or they were, they created this network, and all he did was create an incentive to say, if you can come on the network, you come and contribute your resources, and you can mine Bitcoin, I will give you reward in this crypto token. Right? It's decentralized. There is no hierarchy. There's nobody who's controlling the network. Everybody comes and builds off of that. And so Bitcoin is successful because of three main reasons. One is Metcalfe's law, which is network effects. More nodes coming into the network means the network gets more strengthened, more security, just safer to use, and more value, right? And then, of course, you have the cap limit at 21 million coins. And then lastly, speculation, right? As long as we know Bitcoin and crypto and pretty much all asset classes thrive on speculation, right? So that is what Bitcoin is in a nutshell. Now, how does that relate to Bittensor is because the creator of Bitcoin, the creator of Bittensor are Bitcoiners. The guy worked at Google, and then he was like, how do I take what really works for Bitcoin and how do I apply it in a decentralized network to create financial incentives for people to come and build on to create cutting-edge AI output. That is the whole premise of Bittensor. But what's really exciting about Bittensor is that with Bitcoin, there was only one single economic incentive, which is to secure the hash. That's it, right? But with Bittensor, you can design your own incentives, right? You can go and whatever incentive you can think of, you can create it on the Bittensor network, and then you can you can attract a lot of developers and whoever who can come and create the cutting-edge AI. And I think the most exciting thing about Bittensor is it's Reed's law, not just Metcalfe's law. Metcalfe's law is the more nodes that come on, the more it strengthens. But Reed's law is each node in the network is its own network. So it's a network of networks. So it's like Metcalfe's law on steroids. So that's really the concept of what you really have to grasp with what's in front of us with Bittensor. And it's so early. We're fourth year in. And also, it's Bitcoin's tokenomics at 21 million coins capped. That's it. It follows a halving schedule, and the first halving is coming in December. So it's like finding Bitcoin before the first halving. And we already have a escape velocity. It already went to all-time high of $6 billion, market cap. And so I'm just super excited, as you can tell by my enthusiasm, of what I find in Bittensor. So yeah, anyway, I don't want to keep hogging, but that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on that, you mentioned incentive mechanisms, mining on that. The magic behind that, it started with GPUs, but like you're saying, it can be anything, right? I mean, there's so much effort. That's one of the biggest complaints about Bitcoin is it uses so much processing power and so much energy just for hashes. And it's like, what's the point? We're using all this electricity just to secure a chain. Why don't we do something valuable? Bittensor literally says, how do we make things valuable and force people to mine stuff with value? And we'll get into the details more on that with other topics, but it's just fascinating how you do that. And then you think about like the timing of this with GPUs coming out, like billions and billions and billions of dollars being spent for all of these GPUs to power AI today, and all of that needs to be used somewhere. And that perfect home is on Bittensor to be able to go utilize dark GPUs, optimize the network, make sure that those GPU compute cycles are used towards, what's economically incentivized and the best use case, and not just, CEOs and executives just throwing money at things thinking it's worthwhile, right? I mean, it's an open network and market to be able to do that, so.
Yeah, thank you. I think, when we look at Bittensor as well, you often hear it's it's where AI and blockchain meet, right? And high level, that's exciting. I think that alone is worthy of investing in Bittensor. But specifically within the ecosystem, we have kind of what CH was talking about we've got subnets. That's nodes within nodes. So I'd love to have Brad kind of go high level again. What are subnets? How are these built on Bittensor, and what do they do?
Yeah, so when Bittensor first started, I mean, it was a really simple, I believe it was just like an LLM that you mined on, right? And it was just to solve this problem. I can't remember the timing, a year and a half ago, we were mining on it. They switched over and said, we're gonna shift focus to opening it up, right? This needs to be an open market. This can't just be tops down, we're deciding what's needed. So they introduced the concept of subnets. Subnets are essentially your own startup on chain. So you can just go launch a startup, say, I think I have a problem that needs to be solved. This is how I want it solved. This is the incentive mechanism for how to solve it. And then with that, you release it to the wild. You give people access to your repos. Miners can go, any of you guys can go access that GitHub repo, say, I'm going to go try and compete. I think I can solve this problem better than anyone else. So you hop on, you register, you spend some Tau to register on the network, and you start solving the problem that validators are giving you. With that, it opens up a big competitive mechanism where you have over 100 miners all competing to solve the problem better and quicker and just trying to meet the incentive mechanism. And then back to CH's Reed's Law, you multiply that, that's a whole network of miners and validators and users trying to use that subnet, your startup. And then you have a whole bunch of startups in there that are on chain that can go solve problems. So we have all kinds of subnets that are on chain that are all trying to solve whatever problem they want to create. And there's a whole competitive market mechanism to keep them alive or incentivize or allocate more of the emissions to the miners that matter. So
that's right. So to add on that, the thing about subnets is right now on the network, there's about 128 different subnets. And each of them, they solve a specific problem, right? So maybe show of hands, who here is a coder? Do you write code? Raise your hand. Okay, one, a few. Okay. So if you write code, chances are 76% of you, statistically speaking, use Claude Code, most likely. It is the #1, or should I say, as of last week, the #1 coding agent that's available, okay? Now, there is a subnet that has just been, it went on a crazy run because there's a subnet 62, it's called Ridges, and what they do is they also are creating a coding agent, but instead of what Anthropic does, which is Anthropic, they have the Claude Code, which trains on the LLM that they have, and it's all closed source, right? So they're not sharing it. Ridges flips that model on its head to say, I don't care what model you use, I'm going to set the incentive. You can come and you can use any AI model that you want, any LLM that you want, as long as you can come and solve the problem. And so if you are a coder, you might understand, to judge these coding agents, there is an industry standard called the SWE bench, the Software Engineering Benchmark, okay? And what this benchmark is kind of like the SAT of AI agent, okay? What they do is they'll go on GitHub and they'll take like a popular application or software and they will feed that as problems, like 50 tests, they'll feed it to the AI agent to see if this AI agent can identify the problem and also solve it autonomously. That's how you judge the accuracy of the AI models and how they can solve complex coding problems, okay? With Anthropic's Claude Code, their best score was 75% accuracy, okay? And Anthropic has invested billions of dollars into their LLM, and then hundreds of millions of dollars into Claude code. Okay, so think about that scale for a second. Now, Ridges, on the other hand, essentially launched July 16th at 0% accuracy. As of last week, they went up to 80% accuracy. They surpassed Anthropic's Claude code because of financial incentives. Decentralized financial incentives is what enabled a startup, essentially, using other people's resources coming on and them getting rewarded to create an AI agent that trumps the absolute state-of-the-art centralized counterpart. You know how exciting that is? And by the way, Ridges, they also utilize another subnet called Shoots for inference and compute. They spent $42,000 on that compute for 6 weeks. If they were to do the same, to get the same compute and inference from Anthropic Claude Opus, it would have cost them $2 million. That's a 47x difference in cost. And so that is the power of Bittensor. They use financial incentives to attract the absolute top of the cream of the crop of anybody in the world who can come and solve the problem and contribute, and then they get rewarded. And so that's how you see what I talked about with Breed's Law, in that these subnets, they start working with each other. They use the compute from other subnets, and that's how you have a network of networks, and that's how they're all interconnected. And so you have to understand the cost savings from these subnets compound over time, right? So just on that itself is so exciting. We literally, Bittensor, just within 5-6 weeks, created the absolute best coding agent in the world because of incentives. And that is one of 128 different use cases already live on the network. And maybe I'll just go on and share some more, because again, there's 128 different subnets. Another one is deepfake detection. By the way, just this year alone, in the first quarter, $200 million was lost because of AI deepfakes, because of scams. And so there is now a subnet, subnet 34, they're called Bitmind. They are they have the world's most accurate and best AI detection tool. By the way, centralized companies that have AI detection, you have to think about their business model. You need to keep throwing compute, you gotta keep investing into your model, innovation, it's very limiting, and you have to keep raising capital. But Bitmind, they don't have any of those overhead. They just say, I have a financial incentive, you come and you can just detect deepfakes, and I'll reward you in the token. And because of that model, Bitmind currently has 88% accuracy versus centralized counterparts, most accurate at 70%. So those are just some examples of just absolute cutting edge output from AI deriving from the Bittensor incentive mechanism. And just as Charlie Munger once said, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. Behavior is driven by incentives. For me personally, I'm mining on one of the other subnets. They incentivize content creation. So I make video and I'm mining this token. And it's kicking my ass into gear to make content because I'm like, oh, I can get rewarded for this? Amazing, count me in. And so just some thoughts on subnets there.
Yeah, and just a bit more on that. I mean, you didn't get in details on the subnets, but these guys that are starting these subnets, they're kids. Like, I mean, some of them that are the best are like 20, 21. Yeah. And there's a lot of, like, that's the great thing about decentralized AI, is it's anyone. It's open to anyone that thinks they can compete. Go prove it, and you can do it. Whereas a lot of these big companies, Anthropic, you know, Meta, you got to have a pipeline, right? It's a lot of it is you have to have the network, be in California, be in the right place, and then you kind of sneak in, and a lot of that's politics. This is like, we're finding very, very freaking smart kids that understand it and would have not had the chance at a company, and they're just making money on their own.
Yeah,
it's
and sorry, one more thing I have to bring up with these subnets. For example, let's go back to Ridges. You have to understand these subnets, they produce continuously improving digital commodities that is permissionless. So just like you said, anybody can come and contribute resources, but the thing is, you need to be able to compete with other miners in the network to produce the best value in order for you to be rewarded. So if you come on and you're like, I'm just gonna try to extract and provide no value, sorry, you're not gonna get rewarded. And so all of these subnets, they are continuously improving. And so this is the beauty about Ridges and why they were able to really jump up and now killing it within 6 weeks, is because I think it was like every 12 hours, the code base is updated. And so anybody who comes and solves the sweet bench problem, that becomes open source. So then everybody else can see what worked and then implement the learnings into their own agent. And so that's how you have exponential growth. That's the compounding on Bittensor is on a whole different level. There's nothing like it. Yeah, so.
You can tell CH is passionate. And once you do some research into these other subnets and what can be, you'll be just as passionate. I wanted to switch gears a little bit, kind of jump into the complexities of blockchain and complexities of these tokens. And I wanted to ask Zerobit, what is Talisman building to help these projects kind of allow the retail to get in and get this mass adoption?
Yeah, definitely. As CH was saying, Bittensor is a very complex ecosystem. It is a network of networks. There's like ecosystem within an ecosystem. And if you just look from the surface level of, first of all, how are you going to keep track of all of your tokens that are assigned to the various subnets besides having your Tau? How are you going to view all of that? Well, in Talisman, you can view all of that in one interface. And we spend a lot of effort making sure that the user can interact with the blockchain effectively and efficiently. In Bittensor itself, I think like there are several types of users. One are the developers themselves, and then also the AI researchers who are making all of the meaningful subnets and all the various applications that make Bittensor so interesting. But there is also the retail side who want to own Tau and also want to support the various subnets as well. And that is usually done through the process of staking. And if you're familiar with normal staking, it's usually quite straightforward. It's you have your ETH or you have your Solana, and then you just stake it to a validator. But in Bittensor, it gets a little bit more complicated. Because we have 128 subnets, you can decide whether you want to stake to the root net or if you want to stake to the subnet specifically. But when you stake to the subnet specifically, you are, in essence, supporting the subnet, and you get rewards in that subnet, but you're also exposed to the price differential of what we call like alpha tokens within that subnet. So all of this can get very complicated and very messy and hard to manage, hard to control over all of your positions. But we spend a lot of effort trying to make this as simple as possible for the users, because it's important that retail, normal users, as well as developers, as well as AI researchers, they're all able to interact with what's going on in the chain itself. And we hope to make that experience much smoother for everybody.
Yeah, and jumping into that, maybe we could kind of dive deeper, and I want to open this up to everybody of, we've got subnets, we've got alpha tokens, we call it DTAU. How does this play into the free market and allow for people to contribute and start their own subnets?
Yeah, I was gonna piggyback on what Zerobit was saying. With access and accessibility, there's a lot. The main thing about Bittensor is it's all market driven. Like, there is so much that you need to do. Like she said, you can't just go and stake and say, I'm just going to stake and make money, right? Everything takes intelligence. Everything takes effort, right? If you're mining, you're trying to solve problems. If you're validating, you're trying to hold the miners accountable. If you're building a subnet, you need to build an incentive mechanism that works, and you're constantly adjusting, fighting against miners that are trying to milk it or take advantage of it, validators that are doing the same, right? And you really need to make sure your output's doing well. Majority of people aren't going to be mining. They're not going to be launching subnets. They're not going to be validating, right? Most of that is going to be left to the experts. But like 95, probably 99% of the people are going to be staking, right? And that's, I think, one of the most important things that you guys have to do is it's not just about staking blindly and thinking we're just going to allocate our stake and just let the protocol run. The point of staking is to go and pick the subnets that you think are going to win. There's a whole market incentive to saying if you stake with the right ones and there's enough stake drawn there and there's enough demand to burn out the alpha tokens, that increases your emission, that increases your return. If you stake with the wrong subnets where there's not a lot of interest and people are pulling out or the subnet owner is dumping the alpha tokens, you're going to lose your Bittensor, you're going to lose your stake. So there is market dynamics involved with staking where you can make a lot of money or you can lose money, and it really is a necessity to go either trust people, allocate with people, or stake yourself, and that's a lot of what we're doing. I mean, all three of us, really. Bittensor.ai, Talisman, and CH with exposure and all that stuff, right? It's really important to make sure that we have accessibility in the network to make sure it's running optimally. Because if you're not, you don't have enough market exposure, then you don't have supply and demand, you don't have the real markets.
I think that's really good point as well. Like Bittensor.ai as well as Talisman, we spend a lot of effort allowing the users to discover new opportunities and presenting the information in a way that they can process to make those decisions. I think like the future trend is probably more towards like automated management of such positions, and you'll see a lot of those solutions coming up in Bittensor in the future, but also in Talisman as well. We'll focus more on how to like make that even more simple for the users.
For sure. So maybe one thing I can bring up here is the big picture. If we look at what Bitcoin did, is it created an asset where the unbanked or the debanked, they can come and get Bitcoin and protect themselves, right? Have a source of money that they can use. I think with Bittensor, you can apply that same kind of concept to folks who maybe don't have the kind of resources to tap into the open AIs or the Anthropics of the world, right? If they want to work in AI, maybe there's some genius kid from India who has 0 connections, but he's a freaking genius. He can come on Bittensor, and there's all these different subnets already producing cutting edge, not just AI, but also like all the compute, all the infrastructure of AI is all readily available for you to use at fractions of the cost of what it will cost for you to go into a centralized entity, okay? And so actually, I really believe the first single person billion-dollar company will come from a Bittensor subnet. I really think that's very possible because you can tap into the network of networks, all these different infrastructure and compute, everything you can think of that's in the AI kind of pipeline is all available on Bittensor for, again, a fraction of the cost. And I think if you're talking about the network itself, you also have to look at who's backing the network, who's some of the players that are evangelizing and pushing forward the ecosystem. All right. By the way, Bittensor Tau is the #1 biggest market cap in the crypto AI segment. All right. And if you look at the Pareto distribution 20-80 rule, the 80-20 rule, the 20% of the protocol, top protocol, will take up 80% of the liquidity. That's true across all markets, commodities, digital commodity market, like crypto, the NASDAQ, S&P 500. The select few companies will swallow majority of liquidity. So if you take that same principle, you apply it to crypto AI. I believe Tau, being the #1 biggest player, will continue to accrue liquidity and attract talent. And speaking of talent, by the way, the folks backing Bittensor are some of the most successful people, not just in crypto, but also Web 2. All right, so let's go through with crypto. You have someone like Barry Silbert, multi-billionaire, the guy who pioneered Bitcoin ETFs, institutionalization of Bitcoin through Grayscale, through Digital Currency Group. Right? At one point, they owned CoinDesk, the biggest crypto media company in the world. Shout out to CoinDesk. So all of these, like Barry Silbert being so successful, and you know what he's doing now? He says, I'm going to apply what I did with Grayscale for Bitcoin. I'm going to create a company called Yuma, Y-U-M-A, and all I'm going to do is accelerate the Bittensor ecosystem by investing and helping the subnets. So he's bringing all of his technical expertise, what he did for Bitcoin, onto Bittensor. That's one guy. Another guy, his name is David Lawee, L-A-W-E-E. He's much more low profile, but you can look it up on LinkedIn. This guy was Google's CMO turned VP. And then a decade ago, he created a company called Capital G. Capital G is Google's third-party private equity investment arm. So this guy literally invests in private equity on behalf of Google. And David Lawee is now fully into Bittensor. He co-created a company called Crucible Labs with Bittensor's co-founder, Ala Shibana. And again, they are also accelerating and incubating Bittensor subnets. So it's not just us little guys on stage talking about Bittensor. It's the most successful people in the world from Web 2 and Web 3 going all in on Bittensor. And so that's what I see. And I'm like, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and the pool is so strong that every project who touches Bittensor basically gets super passionate about it and wants to build like crazy things. And we just do it out of our own passion for
It's exactly like the OG Bitcoiners. When Bitcoin was not where it is today, you have the guys evangelizing Bitcoin. It's the same idea because Bittensor is built off of the principles of Bitcoin. Everything that is right about Bitcoin was applied to Bittensor, including its fair launch, the tokenomics, the foundation, trying to step away and kill itself, essentially, just like Satoshi left the network 3 years into building Bitcoin. Same idea. Everything about Bittensor mirrors off of Bitcoin, but much bigger use case. And the thing about technology is they compound and they build off of the past iteration. So Bitcoin was the first decentralized, really the OG, the granddaddy, so to speak, the 0 to 1 of cryptocurrency. But I think now with AI and all the crazy use cases, it's building off the success of Bitcoin and applying it to AI. We already see just some of the most insane cutting edge output as a result of these incentives.
Yeah. That's what, a year of subnets? It's just a year of subnets, right? We're just getting started.
Just 1 year of subnets. It's insane. I mean, like right now it's 128. I can't imagine what it's going to be like when there's 1,000 different subnets. I mean, I really believe, not financial advice and not BitGet's thoughts, is my personal thoughts. I think Bittensor will take half the time that Bitcoin took to go to $1 trillion in market cap. I firmly believe that, simply because of Reed's law. Just study Metcalfe's law versus Reed's law, and you will see my point.
Did you want to drop that?
Well, I wanted to kind of transition into the, what is each individual that's on this panel, what are you building and what are you dedicated to within Bittensor? I know they kind of did a brief intro, but looking at the industry, looking at the ecosystem currently, what's needed, what's being built, and what do you kind of foresee that you will do to help grow Bittensor further? We'll start with Zerobit, and then we'll just go down. We'll start with Brad.
You're gonna start with me?
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, Bittensor.ai obviously kind of explains itself, right? I mean, it's really about hoping to be the landing page for Bittensor, right? We really need, one of the most important things is the ability to know what's going on, right? There's so much development and effort and churn going on that unless your whole life is dedicated to it, and even then, you're probably going to miss out a lot, because what happens is you find a subnet and then you get sucked in and you spend so much time on that. So we're just trying to get more exposure, more on-ramp, make it simple for everyone, wherever we can, to kind of get people on that from 0 to 1 guide ramp to get onto Bittensor, utilize the network, and then find your niche. Find what you're good at and do it, right? I mean, that's one of the most important things about Bittensor is making sure that, if you're passionate about mining, you should be able to easily get on and start mining, right? It needs to stay competitive. We can't have subnet owners go and build a little network and make it their own and make it opaque so people can't compete, right? It needs to be open for anyone to compete so that they can prove their skills. So it's really about on-ramp and accessibility.
Yeah, no doubt. I think with Bittensor, we have already reached escape velocity. Structurally, I don't see anything that can happen to make the network implode. I think at this point, the experiment is working. Like all technology, it's an experiment. And Bittensor already got to $6 billion in market cap at the top. I think now we're trading at about $3 billion. So we're still about 50% away from all-time high, and the halving is coming up. And the thing about these subnets, and why maybe many of you have not heard of it, is because it is a crypto-native asset, right? It's not USD-based. So a lot of these subnets, you can't trade them on the big major exchanges yet. Right now, all the top crypto exchanges, we do have Tau. Like I work at BitGet, we actually listed Tau at like $30, which is kind of crazy. But either way, point is, right now, Tau is available for trading, but subnets really aren't. It's still very, very new, but it's just like finding any new promising asset where you think it has asymmetric upside, and you're getting it on the ground floor. The infrastructure is not fully ready. There's still a lot of risk, but that's really when you have the crazy reward. And so Bittensor is a rabbit hole. For me, I've been falling down the rabbit hole for the last almost 2 years. Every single day, I'm reading everything I can, and still it's very complex. But just like when Bitcoin first started, if you ask 5 people what Bitcoin is, they'll give you 5 different answers. Right now, it's more mature, so there's a lot more papers, and there's a lot less risk with Bitcoin. But again, the risk and reward ratio is not in favor of you, right? Technically speaking, compared to Bittensor. So I think just you got to do the work, and once you do the work, there is nothing else that it comes close to the excitement, at least for me personally, of what Bittensor brings.
I think for Talisman, we're focused on 2 main areas. One is on the developer side, and the other is on the user side. For developer, there's a lot of things we can build even more for developers to make their lives easier directly in the wallet. So we're going to focus on that, but also to integrate more deeply with the subnets, which will make it better for their users as well. So we want to support the subnets more as well. And then on the user side, I think like the interesting thing is the yield potential of Tau. Not financial advice either, but there's a lot of yield opportunities on chain in Tau which you can't find in exchanges. So, but it is harder to navigate, and moving your Tau from an exchange to a self-custodial wallet is a scary thing, and we hope to make that easier for the user and to discover yield opportunities, automated yield opportunities, indexed yield opportunities, everything that can just maximize all of the Tau sitting in your wallet and allocating it to the right subnet and back to Tau when needed.
Yeah, and also one more note. I think the way to think about Bittensor is think of it as a decentralized neural network. Think of it as like a massive tree, and the branches and all the different things that are going into the ground, all these different branches are a subnet, and they're all interconnected with each other. And so the compounding that you will see from Bittensor is going to be like anything else, personally, I believe, because the incentives are aligned. And it's a coordination network that is permissionless. Anybody can come and provide value and be rewarded for it. And I think that will disrupt capitalism itself. If you think about all the different bottlenecks and all the problems with conventional fundraising or just capitalism itself, Bittensor flips the entire model on its head to say, if you provide value, you come on my network, you will be rewarded. That in itself is so groundbreaking and so innovative that is unlike anything else we've ever seen. It becomes very capital efficient. There is no wasted capital. You got to bring true value for you to be rewarded. And so I think that is the one big takeaway I will leave with you guys. It really is groundbreaking.
Amen.
Yeah, I know we're at time, so to close, I just want to say, we've learned about Bittensor. Go set up a wallet with Talisman. Go invest in these subnets on Bittensor.ai, and go watch CH's content to learn about these subnets.
So I make a lot of content on Bittensor. My full-time job is with BitGet, but on my spare time, like you can tell, I absolutely am obsessed with Bittensor. So I make a ton of content. You can go on YouTube, search the Crypto Rabbit Hole. That is my channel. Follow me on X, ch_Egan, E-G-A-N. You'll see a bunch of different content that I make, highly polished, and hope you guys enjoy. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.